Hey everyone, Ethan here. You know, lost media videos have certainly been gaining traction these last couple of years. In fact, I tried to get in on it myself, but clearly none of you seem to care that much about what I had to offer. Like, seriously, what's a guy like me gotta do to get some attention around here? Now, as good as some of these videos are, my only problem with them is that a lot of it is just stuff that, well, it's already been talked about. Like, how many more videos do we need on frickin' Clockman? Cause you see, I want to see more videos on stuff that hasn't been talked about quite as much. Which is why I am about to do a video on some lost media that I remember watching growing up that I've yet to see surface on the internet. Particularly from Nickelodeon. Now, having been in existence for over 40 years, you can imagine just how much content they have produced in that period, and how much of it has been made available in some form. Pretty sure it's a small fraction. So that is why I'm dedicating this video to 5 pieces of lost Nickelodeon media that I remember watching growing up that I've yet to see surface on the internet. Because I can only think of 5. And, in case you were wondering, yes, I am wearing this shirt in the hopes that this will gain some sort of traction to get me enough views. And also because my mom thinks that this will look good on me if I do any videos talking about Nickelodeon. I hope you're happy! And plus this cap right here for good measure. Alright, with that said, let's begin! Now, Loretta the Letter Lady is a very interesting case here because out of all the Nick Jr. interstitials that have surfaced online, this is the one that has surfaced the least. I think like only 2 or 3 segments have surfaced online at this point. Now, it is not clear whether or not she did segments on all 26 letters of the alphabet. But one I know for a fact that she did do a segment on that I've yet to see surface on the internet is the one on the letter Y. Now this was on a tape that I used to have growing up, and unfortunately I do not have that tape anymore. But basically, how that segment went was that Loretta introduced the letter Y, then she showed a yellow Y, and then a brown Y, and then put some green yarn on top of that Y to make it look like a tree. And then she showed words that begin with the letter Y, like yam, yo-yo, and yardstick. And, as is typical with every Loretta the Letter Lady segment, she made up a word with that letter, that being yucky yucky yin yang. I really wish I still had that tape, but I do not. And I can only hope at this point that one day that segment will soon resurface on the internet. Now, Little Big Room is another interesting case because, once again, we don't know just how many of these were produced. The Nickstory Wiki documents about 41 segments. Now, we don't know if that is half, a fraction, or nearly all the segments that were produced. Now, for those who are unaware, Little Big Room was a Nick Jr. interstitial that aired in 1994 as part of the rebrand during that year, which also introduced the iconic mascot, Face. These wraparound segments would air in between shows and would involve Flexi, a yellow bug type thing, and Jam, this blue girl thing, where they'd just be doing, well, whatever they felt like doing, whether it be playing games, or playing pretend, or just whatever they felt like doing. And they would be joined by Silly Man or Isabel. Now, the following year, a new set of segments were produced. Silly Man and Isabel were done away with, and introduced were a weird, bizarre cast of characters, including this cactus family, a slug thing, a talking picture frame, Limba, Captain Countdown. I don't know what the hell these writers were smoking when they came up with this stuff. These segments aired between 1994 and aired as late as 1997. Now, out of all the segments that I remember watching, not very many. The one that I so vaguely remember seeing when I was very little was one that involved Flexi just... I don't remember what it was he was doing. All I can vaguely remember was that he was talking to these random group of side characters, and then at the end I think he said goodbye to each and every one of them. Like, for years I've been trying to find this segment, and it just hasn't surfaced. Until recently, when I was sent this screenshot right here that looks exactly like the segment that I remember seeing when I was very little. But this screenshot is all that I've seen at this point. I have yet to see the full segment, and until that happens, or whenever it is surfaced publicly, then it's still lost. Now, anyone that watched Nickelodeon around 2001 will no doubt remember how Nick promoted the shit out of Jimmy Neutron. Like, pretty much every commercial break you could not go without seeing that big bulgy head of his. Like, they clearly wanted this to become the next big thing, and well, the channel doesn't exactly have the greatest history in trying to make something the next big thing. Now, one of the more clever ways that they did to promote this new movie was the series of in-show interruptions in which Jimmy would interrupt the show as it was playing. Usually these would involve rewinding or fast-forwarding the clip, giving the characters his hairdo, and of course, the puppets.
Yo-ho, yo-ho! Near the hooks, I'll never go.
Yo-ho, yo-ho! Near the hooks, we'll never go.
Now, I don't know about you guys, but as an 8-year-old at that time, I absolutely loved when he did this. Like, I remember watching Nick at this time hoping he would try to mess with the shows. It was kind of cool to see back then. Now, you can get a near complete list of all of these promotional interruptions on the Lost Media Wiki. However, one that they do not have listed for some reason, and one I've yet to see surface on the internet, was one that aired during the Rugrats episode, Planting Dill. Basically, Jimmy came in and started to change to different shows. Like, first it changed to the Wild Thornberrys, then it changed to that episode of Hey Arnold where Harold gains weight after being on that cruise ship, and then, I don't know if there was another show somewhere in that batch. It finally cut to the Culture Shock episode of SpongeBob where he dances with the Bubble Hippo. Tell me I can't be the only one that remembers this. Well, it clearly hasn't surfaced anywhere, so hopefully that may happen someday. But until then, it remains lost. Now, Slime Time Live is a bit of an unfortunate case because, as we have recently learned, Nickelodeon did not save much of the beloved weekday block in their archives. So in other words, what you see on YouTube, that's basically the archive at this point. So, yeah, this is kind of a blow to those who grew up watching the block and hope that one day Nickelodeon would resurface some clips of their own. But that doesn't appear to be likely at this point. Now, if any of you either weren't alive or too young to remember, back in the early 2000s, before the Disney Channel posed a threat to them, Nick tried to emulate its sister channel, MTV. And what was popular on MTV at that time? TRL. So Nickelodeon had their own TRL type blocks on their channel. These included Snick House, Teen Nick, You Pick Live, and of course, Slime Time Live. Now, the one that sticks out to me that I remember watching growing up was during one of the cold opens, there was this safari guy like in the bushes right outside Nickelodeon Studios looking for Slim Tim Live. And then like Jonah pops out and he's like, there is no Slim Tim Live, just Slime Time Live or something like that. Then of course it cuts to the opening and then Dave Azler comes out and is like, welcome to Slime Time Live, not Slim Tim Live. Yeah, I know this is a pretty minor one, but well, I gotta think of something to talk about. So, yeah, I don't know if it'll ever resurface on the internet at this point, but one can only hope. Now, if what we know about Slime Time Live is true, then it is very possible that You Pick Live also met a similar fate. You Pick Live was a weekday block hosted by Brent Papazilio and Candice Bailey, where they'd be joined alongside a weird cast of side characters, including Pick Boy, Antonio, Garbaggio, and Cow. All the while, kids would pick for their favorite shows to see. I would usually pick the ones that they were barely airing by this time, like Rocco or Our Real Monsters. Now, the amount of potentially lost material from that block is incomprehensible, but the one that seems to stick out to me was a segment where two kids decided to reenact one of the scenes from the Hall Monitor episode of SpongeBob. Basically, these two kids, playing the roles of SpongeBob and Patrick, reenacted the scene where SpongeBob cites Patrick for dropping his ice cream, background music and everything, after which they talk to the two kids, and then they cut to the actual clip for comparison. Now, I don't know if this was part of like a series of such segments that were produced, but I just remember seeing that for some reason. Like, come on, I can't be the only one that remembers seeing that, right? Now, at this point, the only way that clip would ever surface is if, well, we find the two kids that were in that segment. But, until that happens, it's very unlikely that clip will resurface anytime soon. And there you have it, my friends. 5 pieces of lost Nickelodeon media that I remember watching that I've yet to see surface online. Now, that was probably only a fraction of just the lost Nickelodeon material overall. There might be some that you might remember watching growing up that you haven't seen surface anywhere. And if there are, let me know in the comments. Alright? Thank you all for watching and I'll see you around. Bye!